Democrats have gone into a fit of hysteria over the Russians disrupting our political system by throwing Democrats into a fit of hysteria. This represents a change for Democrats who until now were friendly to the Russians and referred to Russian leader Vladimir Putin as Vlad, or Vladdy Waddy, or Daddy Vladdy, or just Cutie Pootie, or maybe Pootie Cutie. I always get those two confused. Anyway, you'll remember that former Secretary of State Hillary something or other attempted to reset our relations with Russia in 2009 by personally bringing the Russians a giant red button that was supposed to say reset on it in Russian, but when properly translated, actually said, for a good time, contact Monica at www.ovaloffice.gov. The attempted detente failed when Monica responded to the Russians that she is not that kind of girl, depending on what the meaning of is. Also the meaning of kind, also girl. But anyway, the Russians struck out with her and in frustration decided to annex Crimea, and basically the whole enterprise ended in disaster. Barack Obama, meanwhile, scoffed at Mitt Romney in 2012 when Romney called Russia our biggest geopolitical foe. Obama said, quote, "Ha, ha, ha, you silly Mitt Romney. You are just a billionaire businessman, whereas I am a student of history and know that Russia was destroyed in the Cold War and is now a frozen wasteland that can never trouble us again. So who looks like an arrogant buffoon of a stupid fool now?" Unquote. But now Democrats claim the Russians hacked into the DNC's computers by tricking John Podesta into clicking on a link named reallyBigBoobs.com. Podesta says he thought it was a list of New York Times op-ed columnists, but it turned out to be a series of videos of well-endowed Russian women reading his emails. These emails showed Podesta to be a cynical, uncaring political hack, willing to emotionally manipulate blacks, women, and gays in order to expand government power. In other words, he's a Democrat. The voters were so shocked to discover that Democrats were Democrats, they voted for a Republican who was a Democrat in the hope he wouldn't turn out to be a Democrat. Barack Obama briefed senior members of Congress on the Russian threat as long ago as September, and the president and Congress immediately did absolutely nothing. But then Hillary Clinton lost the election, then lost again when Democrats demanded a recount, then lost yet again when Democrats tried to influence the Electoral College, then hilariously lost even another time when Democrats in Congress tried to stop the approval of the electoral vote, which unfortunately seems to be the last time she can lose, no matter how enjoyable it is for the rest of us. Obama and the Democrats are now demanding something be done about Russia right this minute, a cheap ploy to distract Trump from working on his agenda. But what Republican could be stupid enough to fall for that? Oh, wait, silly question. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky. Life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, as we speak, Senator Jeff Sessions is on Capitol Hill being grilled by senators. We don't know what will happen, and that's the thing. Right about now, nobody knows what is going to happen in the next months and even years. And with the uncertainty, many Americans are becoming increasingly concerned about the value of their money, the security of their savings. And that's why we've been talking about Birch Gold. The Federal Reserve is printing money. There's going to be some inflation. We don't want inflation eating away at the savings that you and I have worked so hard to earn. That's why right now is a perfect opportunity to secure your hard-earned money by moving into precious metals. Precious metals historically keep their value more than cash. The company we trust with precious metals purchases is Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold sells physical precious metal for your own possession and will ship the metals right to your front door. And right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can even move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver. It's perfect for those who want to ensure that their hard-earned retirement savings are protected from inflation and any more stock market crashes like the one that's coming any minute now. Birch Gold Group has a long-standing track record of continued success, thousands of satisfied clients, countless five-star reviews, and it's got an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. You can contact Birch Gold Group now to request a free information kit on physical precious metals. It's a comprehensive 16 16-page kit and tells you how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can legally move your IRA and 401k out of risky stocks and bonds into a precious metals IRA. To get this no-cost, no-obligation kit, go to www.birchgold.com/Andrew. That's www.birchgold.com/Andrew. That's how they know I sent you. You can get the kit, no obligation. It is free. All right, so now it begins. This is the moment when we're going to find out whether the old Democrat playbook, which has been in play for decades now, is going to stand up against the new Trumpian politics. Jeff Sessions, 20-year senator from Alabama, is on the Hill. He is Trump's choice for attorney general, and they are grilling him right now. Here are the Democrats talking.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government.
Okay, now many of you may be saying that's not a living Democrat, that's a dead murderer. And it is a dead murderer. Oh, okay, maybe manslaughter. He didn't mean to drive the girl into the drink and leave her there to die while he changed his clothes and established an alibi. But that is just a reminder of the way the Democrats work. 1987, right? Robert Bork, an originalist judge who didn't like Roe v. Wade, thought the Constitution does not have a right to privacy, which the court had deduced. And they just went at, you just heard that. I mean, you know, he's going to put blacks, he's going to put you all back in chains, as Joe Biden later put it. This is the way these guys operate. And remember, by the way, the Republicans ran for their lives. They were not used to this. They know the press is against them. They know the press will report everything as the Democrats tell it and will not back up what the Republicans' defense. And even Reagan kind of left Bork hanging once the committee rejected him, and it looked like he was assured of losing. Bork was so ticked off about this, he ultimately resigned even the appellate court seat that he had. He was not protected. We saw it again with Anita Hill. That was, you know, Anita Hill hearing with Clarence Thomas for the Supreme Court, that was what turned Andrew Breitbart into a conservative, because he just thought, wait a minute. You know, I thought the Democrats were for black people. The thing about that hearing, because they still debate this, HBO just did, you know, backing up the press, backing up the professoriate, HBO, Hollywood, backing up with a story, a drama about the Anita Hill hearings that turned her into a heroine and made Clarence Thomas look like a bad guy. Even if what Anita Hill had been saying was true, it was no reason not to appoint the man to the Supreme Court. Since then, by the way, they have been relentlessly saying that all Clarence Thomas, because Clarence Thomas doesn't talk a lot during the cases, that all he is, you know, following Antonin Scalia around, all completely untrue. Clarence Thomas has a very, very definitive originalist philosophy. It's to the right of Scalia's. It's more originalist than Scalia's. He's written some very important decisions. They never let him write the main decisions because they think he's nuts, basically, but because they think he's so far right. But you know, he's an important, brilliant man, and Anita Hill had no business. That was literally Ted Kennedy, a guy who drops his girlfriends into the drink and leaves them there to drown, is questioning Clarence Thomas on whether he made some untoward remarks toward Anita Hill, a woman he supported and promoted and who followed him from job to job because he was so helpful to her. But maybe he made a couple of untoward remarks, possibly. I don't know whether he did or not, but it was absolutely nothing. It was absolute nonsense, and this is the way they do it. Now, the problem is, on the other side, the narrative sweeps away any kind of malfeasance on the part of Democrats. Remember, Robert Byrd, longest-serving U.S. senator, started a Ku Klux Klan chapter in the 1940s. Robert Byrd wrote this to his senator in Mississippi. It was during the war, right, during World War II. And Robert Byrd wrote, "I shall never fight in the armed forces with a Negro by my side. Rather, I should die 1,000 times and see Old Glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see this beloved land of ours." Crikey. Then to see this beloved land of ours become degraded by race mongrels, a throwback to the blackest specimens from the wilds. That was Robert Byrd. There are more buildings named after Robert Byrd than there are buildings named Building. You know, this is what Robert Byrd basically did while he was in the Senate. He had things named after him. Now, I just want for 1 minute to imagine any Republican, if he was 12 years old, if he was 2 years old, having those words, I would rather see Old Glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see us degraded by race mongrels. That's what Robert Byrd wrote, okay? Here's Bill Clinton talking about that.
There are a lot of people who wrote these eulogies for Senator Byrd in the newspapers, and I read a bunch of them, and they mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with a Ku Klux Klan, and what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected. And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done, and he spent the rest of his life making it up. And that's what a good person does. There are no perfect people. There are certainly no perfect politicians.
So that's his proof. The fact that he wouldn't fight in World War II if he had to fight with Negroes, it proves what a good person he is. It proves, it proves in the Democrat narrative, that proves what a good person is. And here's the funny thing. I agree with Bill Clinton. People do stupid things when they're young. You do have to let people go. You have to let people change. Of course you do. But what are they going to get on Jeff Sessions? In 1986, Sessions was up for a federal judgeship, and they borked him. They did the same thing they did to Bork, and they pulled out this stuff, comments he was supposed to have made, jokes he was supposed to have made, one of which was pretty funny. He said something, I didn't mind the Ku Klux Klan until I found out they were in favor of smoking pot. That was a pretty good line, actually. So, and they had all this stuff. He prosecuted a case, a voter fraud case, where some blacks were trying to fraudulently register. He claims, and I actually believe this is true, that he was trying to protect a black candidate that these guys were voting against. But we all know there's voter fraud, especially and that case fell apart, and he admitted that it fell apart. He also, as we've mentioned before, he prosecuted a Ku Klux Klan murderer literally into the ground. When he was state attorney general, he prosecuted him, got the death penalty, made sure the death penalty was carried out, and what followed from that ended basically the Ku Klux Klan in his state. He has been the thing about Sessions is they all know him. See, and he's a very, very straight arrow guy, and he's a very good guy, and they all know it. And so they're going to have a hard time blacklisting him. They say that Cory Booker, in an unprecedented act, a senator, is going to testify against a senator. That's going to be kind of strange. But let's hear some of the stuff that's going on the Hill. He is being asked about Trump's plan. And remember, Trump's plan has changed. Trump at one point said we've got to stop all Muslim immigration. He has changed that to make sure there's severe vetting for people coming from countries with a lot of terrorism. So here is Sessions, cut 14, being asked about that.
Do you agree with the President-elect the United States can or should deny entry to all members of a particular religion?
I have no belief and do not support the idea that Muslims as a religious group should be denied admission to the United States. We have great Muslim citizens who've contributed in so many different ways. And America, as I said in my remarks at the occasion that we discussed it in committee, are great believers in religious freedom and the right of people to exercise their religious beliefs.
See, this is now, a long time since 1986. These guys have learned the playbook. They know what's coming down the pike. They know it. And just listen to the dishonest way the question was asked. Do you believe with the president-elect? The president-elect has already said that he didn't believe that. We know Trump goes off at the mouth. We know he's got a big mouth and he shoots from the hip and all this stuff. And he changed that. He changed what he said as he told them during the debates. It has morphed into the kind of vetting that Obama was already doing, by the way. Obama only canceled that vetting program just after Trump was elected, so Trump would have to reinstate it and they could all scream about what a bigot he is. I mean, the whole thing is a kabuki show to make Republicans always the same thing. Harry Reid comes out and says, Obama can win an election because he's a light-skinned Negro without a Negro dialect and all this. And that's fine because the narrative just sweeps them away. It sweeps their guilt away. But the Republican guilt is always out there. So here is another really interesting exchange, I thought, on Roe v. Wade, because this has always been the big thing, especially with Supreme Court nominees. But here also is a guy who's going to be enforcing the law. Here is the horrendous Dianne Feinstein asking him about that.
You have referred to Roe v. Wade as, quote, one of the worst, colossally erroneous Supreme Court decisions of all time, end quote. Is that still your view?
It is. I believe it violated the Constitution and really attempted to set policy and not follow law. It is the law of the land. It has been so established and settled for quite a long time, and it deserves respect, and I would respect it and follow it.
So fair enough, fair enough. That's his job as Attorney General. He's got to do it. You know, the Democrats know they've got something on this because most people think there should be some abortion. Most people in America think there should be some abortion rights, and they associate that with Roe v. Wade because the Democrats and the press have made sure that those two things are associated. But of course, there is no association. All Roe v. Wade did was take away your right to set law in your state, in your area. Which, of course, the Constitution should almost guarantee you. There's no right to abortion in the Constitution. There's no right. You know, here's a funny thing. I actually disagree with the originalists on this. There are rights in the Constitution that are not enumerated. And so the right to privacy does seem to me to be suggested in the Constitution. How the right to privacy gets translated, the right to privacy may well get translated to not allowing states to make laws about the kind of sex you have in your home. That makes perfect sense to me. But how the right to privacy takes away the right to life of the baby, that is what is a little confusing. So we're going to have to say goodbye to people on Facebook. Hey, before I say goodbye to people on Facebook and YouTube, let me remind you that tomorrow is Mailbag Day. If you are a subscriber at thedailywire.com, you can send in your questions. We will answer them. Our answers will change your life entirely. You will actually turn into another person, possibly a different gender. Who knows what could happen to you? If you are not a subscriber, shame on you. Shame on you. It's a lousy $8 a month. What does it take? Subscribe to thedailywire.com. Come on over to the site and listen to the rest of the show.